What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millzy back with Hometown Commander. What are we doing today? We are brewing. When are we not brewing? Is the better question. Just remember, ABB, baby. Always be brewing. We're back for another episode of Millzy Brews. Today we are tackling another deck that I have built in the past. A deck that I absolutely adore. I had a lot of fun with this deck. And my hope is that I can put another list of this together that satisfies what I want from an Enchantress deck. I took the original list of this apart to kind of fun shrines, if I call it shrines, which is a deck that I truly enjoy. I love that deck. But I think I really like this Selesnya Enchantress kind of style. We've seen some other commanders and enchantments. We've seen Mazzy just came out in Commander Legends 2, which is very Naya themed. We've seen some Esper enchantment stuff in the past with Zur and the Enchanter. We've seen a lot of different things, but I think I like this green-white enchantments better. One, because it's two colors. Two, because we get to ramp in green. And I think we can just take advantage of all of our bonuses. So, if you watched my Zexara video, in that one, I actually had kind of prepared a list of about 150 cards, and we kind of talked through together what my thoughts were on putting the deck back together, and we put the deck together, and I used EDHREC to kind of round out the list. And what I want to do this time is I want to use EDHREC like I would if I was building Sythis as a new commander. So the caveat there is I've built Sythis before, so I kind of understand how to take advantage of her. But what I want to do here is a little bit to simulate how I would recommend a new player tackle Sythis. So this is what I'm going to do for now. And we're going to go through the EDHREC page, and we're going to talk about what I want to do with the deck, and then we're going to determine if the cards that we're looking at fit our function. Just because a card is on the EDHREC page doesn't mean that it needs to be in our deck 100%. But if it's on here, it means that it probably is a very good card. So my original Sythis list, just like I did this time, is going to be purely Enchantress. I'm not going to play any artifacts. And the reason that I'm not going to play any artifacts is to play a card called Stony Silence. This is a card for 1 and a white that says activated abilities of artifacts cannot be activated. This is going to stop all of our opponents' mana rocks. This is going to stop all of their treasures. This is going to stop a lot of things. And I want to play as many of these. I wouldn't call them stacks pieces. I would actually call them just ways to slow our opponents down. So we got Ashes of the Abhorrent. Players can't cast spell from their graveyards or active abilities of cards in graveyards. Whenever a creature dies, we gain a life. And Authority of the Consuls. Creatures your opponents enter the battlefield tapped, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield under their opponent's control, we gain a life. And then we're going to play something like Blind Obedience as well, which says artifacts and creatures our opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So what we're going to try to do is, what I'd like to do this time with Sythis is just play a little bit more into the life gain. We're still going to go Enchantress. We're still going to be dumping enchantments on the battlefield. We're going to find ways to make some tokens with them, and we're going to take advantage of all of this massive life gain. But I'm specifically not going to play Aetherflux Reservoir. I'm specifically not going to play Well of Lost Dreams and things like that we can pay off life gain with. I'm going to specifically keep it to enchantments, and I would like to put a little bit of an angel sub-theme in here if I can. I think they're going to be able to take advantage of all of our life game synergies. So I'm putting these 4 in here to start because these are enchantments that I really care about. These are things that I think are going to help our deck list a ton, and I think they're going to be really helpful. So let's move over to EDHREC. For those of you that have never been on EDHREC before, EDHREC has a lot of good information when it comes to Sythis. So you can see here, every commander will have a little thing up top here. You can see what percentage people are playing as far as cards in an average deck list. If you don't know, what you can actually do is click on this average deck tab, and you can see an average Sythis deck right here. You could copy and paste this into your favorite deck builder, and this would show you an average deck. What I think I'm going to do, not for Sythis, but for another commander, I'm going to do it that way. I'm going to pull an average deck and then change it how I would want to change it to fit my playstyle. But for this episode, we're going to go from scratch. Now, I can pick enchantments here, and what this will do is this will change my recommendations to playing more Enchantress. Whereas if I wanted to go more auras, I could click auras here, and that'll show me more of the auras. I could pick sagas if I wanted. I will still play some sagas in this deck. I actually think sagas are going to be fairly good. But I think I'm going to leave it no theme. Because I think we can still get some use. Now, what I will do is I'm going to come over here to Skyfall. I can think of a couple sagas off the top of my head, but I'd like to see what sagas we have access to in green-white. But anyway, let's start. Let's go down the list. Smuggler's Share. Smuggler's Share is a card that I see a lot of people playing. I think it's an interesting card. I just don't know if we can use it to its biggest effect. And the main reason is because it relies almost completely on our opponents doing things. So at the beginning of each end step, we draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards. And then we create a treasure token for each opponent who had 2 or more lands enter the battlefield. Well, I think unless we're playing a lot of players who are trying to do both of those things, I don't know that we're paying enough off of this. We can't. Another reason I kind of don't want to play it is for the treasures. I already said that I want to go into this Stony Silence game plan. We're going to have plenty of tutors to get enchantments. And if I know I'm playing a Grixis deck or a Dimir deck that's going to rely on their enchantments, I'm going to go tutor out that Stony Silence. So I don't think Smuggler's Share does what we want it to do. The other thing is we're going to have no problem drawing cards. The great thing about this deck is even without a natural Enchantress, and by Enchantress I mean creatures that draw you a card when you either cast or an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, we're not going to have that problem. Sythis is going to keep our hand consistently refilled. In fact, most of the time, Sythis has the problem of having too many cards in your hand. So I'm not worried about the Smuggler's Share because I actually don't think that I can use it to the ability I want. But let's go down to here. And all 10 of these cards are fantastic. First off, we start with Enchantress's Presence. This is one of the best... This is one of our best Enchantress draws. It's an enchantment, so when we play it, if we have Sythis out, we're going to gain a life and draw a card. And it says whenever you cast an enchantment, draw a card. Well, we're going to play lots of little enchantments so we can continue to get these enchantments down and fill up our hand. And not only that, but get more enchantments down for their effects. And so this is just going to help replace our hand. Then we see Sterling Grove, which is one of my favorite Enchantress cards. This says, other enchantments you control have Shroud, meaning they can't be the targets of spell or abilities. But it says 1, sacrifice Sterling Grove, search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, shuffle, then put that card on top. Sterling Grove is great because it's going to protect all of our enchantments from removal. The only downside is there's a good combo in this deck with a card called, not that one, although that Heliod isn't bad. I might actually consider that one for this deck. Heliod Suncrowned. This is a enchantment creature god that whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. Well, the bad part is if I have Sterling Grove out, we can't target any of our own enchantments. In fact, you can't even target Heliod with it. The only thing that you can put the counters on are Sterling Grove, right? Because it says every other enchantment. So this is a little bit of a non-bow, but I think more often than not, the good part here is we can sack this for 1 mana, get rid of it, and then we can turn our Heliod on if that's what we want to use. So I am also going to put in our combo with Heliod. The only artifact that I'm going to play in this deck is Walking Ballista. And the reason is Walking Ballista, with enough mana, is an infinite combo with Heliod. So the way that it works is you play Walking Ballista. I normally like to start with... I like to do this combo at 10 mana, but in all reality, you can do it at 8. So what you would do is you would play Walking Ballista for 4. You would put 2 counters on it, right? It has an ability at the bottom. Remove a +1/+1 counter from it. Deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Well, what you can do is with Heliod in response, you can give it lifelink for 2 mana, which means when Walking Ballista deals damage to a opponent, or anything, we gain life. Well, then Heliod says whenever you gain life, you put a counter, and you put the counter back on Walking Ballista, and then you repeat that process endlessly. That only takes 6 mana. I like to do it at 8 or 10 mana, and the reason is because when we put that Ballista trigger on the stack, and we respond with Heliod while we're holding priority to give it lifelink, we have to pass priority to our opponents, which means if they have removal, they can do that. They can respond with their removal. So the reason that I like to do this at 8 mana or 10 mana is so I can put an extra counter on Walking Ballista. So I like to put it down with 3 instead of 2. And the reason is, let's say I remove that first counter and I start the loop by giving it lifelink with Heliod, and someone's responds, well, I can pay 2 more mana and take another counter off of Walking Ballista to start the combo again at instant speed. So I always like to do this at, like I said, 8 mana instead of 6, because it gives you a little bit of protection. I also don't even mind doing it at 10 mana either, because it gives you another activation of Heliod and another counter. You know, you could bring down Walking Ballista for more than 3. You could do it at 4, and you could, if you have infinite mana, it doesn't really matter, because we can put a counter on it for 4 mana as well. So if we have infinite mana, we don't even need the Heliod, because we can just spam the counters and take them off and put them back on. So one of the easiest access to infinite mana we have in this deck is a couple of different cards, but my favorite is Sanctum Weaver. This is a creature. 1 and a green for a 0/2. It says add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of enchantments you control. So Sanctum Weaver, when we get started and get going, can tap for a lot of mana. But we're going to combine it with an enchantment called Gauntlets of Light. This says enchanted creature gets +0/+2 and assigns combat damage as though equal to its toughness rather than its power. We really don't care about that. We do care that it's an enchantment, though, because we can still draw off it. But we care about the second part. It says enchanted creature has 2 and a white, untap it. So as long as we have more than 4 enchantments, which is going to be almost all of the time, heck, we have 2 of them right here, right, between Gauntlets of Light and Sanctum Weaver, we can tap Sanctum Weaver, and then untap Sanctum Weaver and gain infinite mana of any color. Now, to make infinite mana in both green and white, we'll have to tap it a couple times, right? Because you have to tap it, pay to untap, tap it to pay to start. You need the white, right? Because the white is what untaps it. So maybe let's say we had 4 enchantments, for example. We would tap it for 4 white, untap for 3 white. Well, we're floating a white now. We'd tap for 4 white again, 3 white, and untap. We're gonna go another white. And so as you can see, doing this over and over again, we can net however much mana and continually stack our mana up infinitely. So the other thing we're going to do is try to pay off that infinite mana in other ways, because we need to find a way to win. My hope with the creature tokens is that we can find a way with tokens to win through a couple other routes. But we need things like this to allow us to win the game that way. Now, the other part of this infinite mana that unfortunately we don't have access to is something like Freed from the Real. Freed from the Real is an enchantment that does a very similar thing. And we saw this in the Zexar video, but it only does it for 1 mana, but it's in blue. So we can't play this because we're in Selesnya. We're not in Bant if we had that. Same thing with Pemin's Aura. So we can't do that, which is unfortunate, but I think we can still take good advantage of it. Okay, so let's keep going. Sigil of the Empty Throne. Love this one. If we can get this down, this is one of those enchantments that's going to help us make tokens. And it's going to help us. So what we want to do is play a card like Concordant Crossroads, which is going to allow us to give every creature on the battlefield haste. So what we're looking to do is dump a bunch of tokens with an ability like this, and then give all our creatures haste and attack. We also want to give them vigilance, but we'll get there. Next card on this top is Destiny Spinner. Destiny Spinner is a really great creature for only 2 mana. It's uncommon. It says creature and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. This is great because then you can start taking some really long turns where you're playing things and have no fear of them getting countered. But for 4 mana, we can have a target land become an XX elemental creature with trample and haste, where X is the number of enchantments we control. Well, if we have a way like this on enchantments to make infinite mana, we could make all of our lands XXs and attack with them. So you can start to see that we're going to have lots of different ways to to take care of the board here, we start going. All right, next up we see two of my favorite enchantments in green for ramp, and that is Wild Growth and Fertile Ground. These two are used to help us enchant our lands to tap for more mana. We're also going to add Utopia Sprawl because it does a very similar thing, and we're going to be playing a lot of forests. I think it's going to go well. I love it when Moxfield defaults to these old printings. We're gonna switch them just so we can read them. But so here we enchant a land, adds an extra mana of one additional color. Most time, if we attach it to a white land, we're gonna pick green, and pick white. Wild Growth, land taps for an additional green. Utopia Sprawl has to go on a forest. And we choose a color, and when we tap the forest, we get that color. So these are all going to help us get access to more ramp mana. We're still going to play the green ramp, but this is just more green ramp that we get access to, right? Next up, we got a couple pair of constellation creatures. We got Eidolon Blossoms, one of our favorite enchantresses. It's an enchantment creature, so when we cast it with Sythis out, we're still going to draw the card and gain a life. It says whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield, so not cast, just enters the battlefield, we draw a card. And this is going to be great because we're going to plan to try to use this as much as possible to do some of the things. So that's going to be great. And then the other one we saw, which is our big boy. This is one of those creatures that's going to help us hopefully win the game if we can get it big enough and give it trample or give it some other ability. And that's the Sythis Champion. Same thing, Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. So now not only are we growing it, but we're also putting a counter on it. So unfortunately, Sythis Champion doesn't have trample. We'll have to give it trample for it to be a big threat. But with this and Sythis out, or this and another Enchantress out, now even these little one-mana enchantments become even better. They start drawing us a ton of cards. And then we see Darkstalk Mutation. So I want to try to keep as much of our removal as enchantments as possible because we want to get the benefit. So we want to use things like Darkstalk Mutation and Lignify and Song of the Dryads. These are enchantments that are going to act as removal, but they're also enchantments. So they're going to give us the ability to draw off of them. Darkstalk Mutation turns it into a creature with no abilities. Song of the Dryads turns a permanent into a colorless forest land, so completely just nukes. This at least leaves it as a creature. This... that permanent's a land now. And same thing with this. That creature just becomes an 0/4 tree folk with abilities. These are sometimes great on commanders because then it locks them down from their strategies, but can also be good on that big giant thing. Because, like, for example, let's say, I'm not calling anyone out in my playgroup on this, but let's say your opponent has a giant 18/18 Ashaya or a big creature that has an ability that gains them power and toughness based on the amount of lands they control. Well, you dump one of these on them, it becomes this little creature, and a lot of those landfall decks, they require those big creatures to be their win con. Or if they have a big flyer or a commander that just completely turns on their strategy. Well, now you go after one of their commander with one of these, and you're going to completely lock down another player's strategy. So let's keep going. We got Sanctum. There we go. We got Kenrith's Transformation. Kenrith's Transformation is one of my favorite of those. One, because the art's gorgeous. Who doesn't love Eldraine? But the second is it draws us a card and does the exact same thing as Lignify does. The only difference is it becomes a 3/3 elk as opposed to the 0/4 tree folk. But it draws us a card, which is great because a lot of times when we're playing this, we're already going to have enchantresses on the battlefield. So not only are we doing the Lignify effect, we're also drawing an extra card, which is great. So I really like that. We have Mesa Enchantress. So this is a creature that whenever you cast a spell, you draw a card. Enchantment spell, you draw a card. The Enchantresses are very good. I just don't want to play too many of them. And the reason is because we don't always need 5 or 6 of these Enchantress cards. What we really need is something to do with all of these cards that we're drawing. So, because we have to remember, we have an Enchantress in the command zone. So we need to not play a ton. Like, I'm not going to play 10 or 15 of them. I think a couple of them will be fine. I want to focus more on what am I using all these cards that I'm drawing and all this mana that I'm taking, all these enchantments that I'm putting down for my own benefit. Archon of Sun's Grace. I think this is one of my favorite token producers that we can play in this deck. Archon of Sun's Grace says whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield, you make a 2/2 Pegasus with flying. So we can have a big turn where we play a lot of enchantments and then dump this Concordant Crossroads. We can attack with all those 2/2 flyers. So that's really good. So We see the plowshares here, and I want to play Swords to Plowshares. We can't rely on enchantments for all our removal. We can't. We'll never survive. We need instant speed removal to take care of some things. So we're going to play the swords. We're going to play the path. We're going to play Beast Within, because we still need responses. We still need removal. We can't get away with just these couple pieces of enchantment removal. A lot of people might consider like a generous gift as well. I think I'll throw it in for now. Maybe we cut it later. But we want a good removal suite to take care of the things we want to take. There's the Utopia Sprawl, of course, that we put in already. We see a Dillic Tutor. So let's get our enchantment. Oh, geez. Let's get our enchantment tutors out of the way. We have a Dillic Tutor and Enlightened Tutor. And then I'm going to play the Worldly Tutor only because if I see Heliod or I see Walking Ballista, I do still want to be able to go get the other one. Thankfully, I can use enchantment tutors to get Heliod, but I'll need a creature tutor to go get Walking Ballista. Or if I see one half of our Sanctum Weaver combo, I want to be able to get it. So I think I might play Eladamri's Call as well to do something similar. It's a instant speed tutor that puts it to your hand. I think I like it. I think it's good to have another tutor. I own a Sylvan Tutor, but we'll figure that out in a second. It still puts it on top, and I guess with how much life gain or how much drawing we can do, Sylvan Tutor is probably still pretty good. And then, while we're on the topic of Sylvan, we want to play the Sylvan Library. We're going to be gaining so much life that we should be very much able to just churn through our deck with a Sylvan Library. Okay. So now we're coming down to creatures. So on the EDHREC page, you're always going to have the newest cards. These are the cards that have been printed in the newest sets. Then you have high synergy cards. What this generally is the cards that most decks are playing across all lists. You see here, I don't have a theme selected. So this is cards that are being played in every theme. Whereas if I go pick a theme here, then this is going to be the most highly played card in that theme. But I think I like seeing it with all of these together because they're all just going to be good. They're all just going to help me. And I don't want to go primarily just enchantments or just sagas. I kind of want to mix them all together. Okay, so we go to creatures. We see Herald of the Pantheon. Enchantment spells you cast one less to cast. And whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain a life. I think it's worth it. We can take advantage of the life gain in a couple ways. So I think I like Herald of the Pantheon here. I think it helps us out. We don't want to play too many of these kind of creatures, so we got to be careful. But I like it. Here we want the most numerous amount of cards in our deck to be enchantments, so we may have to bring this back a little bit. Verduran Enchantress and Argothian Enchantress, I'm okay. I think I have plenty, and I think we'll be okay. I don't think we need them. We most certainly do want Weaver of Harmony and Dryad of the Illusion Grove, though. Weaver of Harmony we want because it can double up on triggers of our enchantments. And Dryad of the Illusion Grove we want because, one, it's an enchantment creature, which means we get it when it comes in. And two, it allows us to play an extra land every turn and makes all of our lands every type. So it'd be kind of like playing a Chromatic Lantern. Now our lands don't matter, they can tap for anything, which is great, which is what we want. And like I said, Weaver of Harmony buffs our other enchantment creatures, which is going to be a fair amount of our creatures. And then, for a green, we can copy an activated or triggered ability from an enchantment source. So we could copy a Heliod trigger. We could copy a Sythis trigger if we need an extra card. And not only that, but when we start talking about some of our enchantments like Sigil of the Empty Throne, or I really like Hallowed Haunting in this list to get us some more tokens. When we start talking about big enchantments like this, Weaver of Harmony can copy all of these abilities and give us an extra copy of that ability, which is going to be really good. So there you go. We see Heliod there. Courser Crewfix seems interesting. I don't know that I need it as much, but I think we'll put it in there. One, because it's an enchantment creature. So I don't think we mind playing it because it is an enchantment. And two, because it allows us to play lands off the top and kind of get them out of the way so we're not drawing them. Okay, Moonblast Cleric is another enchantment tutor, but it itself is not an enchantment. But I still think it's good. And the reason is because I don't think we want to turn down the ability to go get that really important enchantment we need. And I don't mind paying 3 mana on a creature to do that. I don't know that we're playing any way to... I don't know if we're going to be playing any ways to blink this yet, but if we play any ways to blink this at all, meaning we either pick it up back to our hand or we exile it and then bring it back to the battlefield, well, then we're just going to keep continuing to search for more enchantments. So I really like that. I think that'll be good. That'll help out. I'm good on Starfield Mystic. I think I like Herald of the Pantheon better, and we don't need to run that many of them. Johnny's Chosen, I like, especially if we're going to go down this making the tokens route. I think a Johnny's Chosen will do us well for that in creating these 2/2 cats. The one thing that this deck just really excels at is just churning through cards in your deck. And so a lot of the times once you go infinite on mana, you can draw your entire deck. So, or as much of your deck as you want, as you have enchantments. So I like that. Karametra would be interesting. I worry that we don't want that much ramp though. Like at a certain point, we want to see more enchantments than lands, and we're not always going to be casting creature spells. So I don't know. I think I'm okay with it. Same thing with like Sun Titan. I don't know that I love it. Oromancer, I don't mind. Again, I just don't think it's good. Trellisaro wouldn't actually be half bad if we're going to bother to gain the life anyway. Could be another big creature. I think it's one to consider. I like Catilda. Catilda's a nice... It's a big creature because we're going to be playing lots of enchantments. And then its backside actually is going to buff a creature equal to the amount of permanents that are either spirits or enchantments. So this backside could really buff a creature. Or the front side can get big. And the spirits thing works with Hallowed Haunting. So, and we'll find other ways to pay it off. But I like Catilda. It could be like a little mini commander creature in our deck. Something's going to get big. I kind of like Calming of Transients, but I don't know how much we can pay it off. So I like Siona, though. Siona is another creature that we have access to an infinite mana, or infinite combo with. What was it? Siona Captain. She has a very infamous combo with Shielded by Faith. Shielded by Faith says, enchanted creature as indestructible. And it says, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may attach Shielded by Faith to that creature. Well, Siona says, whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a creature, create a 1/1. Well, Shielded by Faith says, whenever a creature comes in, we attach it. So basically what happens is we attach it to the 1/1 and when it comes in, we attach it to Siona. Siona makes the 1/1. When that 1/1 comes in, Shielded by Faith sees the 1/1 come in and says, hey, do you want to attach this to that? And we'll do that. And we'll just keep going down a chain to create as many tokens as we want to. So this is also a finisher with Concordant Crossroads, because then we can make infinite 1/1 White Human Soldiers. So that's a good thing. We can't play Asper Sentinel, because remember, we're not going to go for that. I like Nyx Bloom, but I don't think we can use it. So, Generous Visitor gets a lot of play in Standard. It's an interesting card. I just don't know that we can pay it off in Commander the same way. You know, we're not playing the tempo game like we are. We're not playing the tempo game like we are in Standard, so I don't know that we can do it. This is a card that intrigues me, that I kind of want to try. Heliod, God of the Sun. So this is an enchantment creature, a god, just like the other Heliod. It gives all our creatures vigilance, which is going to be a good thing, I think, with the tokens, right? Give all of our tokens and everything vigilance. But for 4 mana, we can put an enchantment token onto the battlefield, which means we can trigger any of our constellation triggers if we run out of cards. So I think I'm willing to try this in here. I think it'll do a lot of good. Okay. Here's a card that I would like to try to build around if I can. And that is Light Paws. Light Paws is a commander in her own right. A very good one at that. But I'd love to see if we can fit Light Paws into this deck and use it. So whenever an aura enters the battlefield under your control, if you cast it, you may search your library for an aura with mana value less than equal to that aura in a different name and attach it to Light Paws. So the hope here is that we either play something like Lignify or Canon's Transformation or Darkstalk Mutation on one of our opponent's creatures, and we can go get an aura for ourselves. Or we get to play something like Gauntlets of Light or Shielded by Faith on one of our own creatures, and then we go get something and attach it to Light Paws. And I think the perfect target for that is something like All That Glitters, which means the creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact, or Ethereal Armor. Ethereal Armor says creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control and has first strike. And then I also want to add Michiko's Reign of Truth here, which will pump our creatures for the amount of artifact enchantments we control. So I think these two are perfect targets for Light Paws and any other creature we have, especially anything in the air. Because if we have enough enchantments, I think these two are going to really buff up that creature. So I like it. I think Light Paws would do well. We might run into the situation where we don't have enough auras to actually use with Light Paws. So maybe that's something we'll kind of make a note for and come back in the end. So I kind of like the idea of Nylea, God of the Hunt, to give all of our creatures trample, especially if we're going to go for this. If we're going to go for this tokeny, go wide approach, I think the Nylea will do good in giving all of them trample. Yasharn, I'm not as worried about. Because I can't really use it, but the bottom ability does seem really cool to hose sacrifice decks, but I don't really think I need it. I love the idea of Shigeki, though. Shigeki can get cards back from our graveyard, and it is also an enchantment. So it can come down and trigger our stuff, but then we can sacrifice it, or we can return it back to our hand and get some stuff in our graveyard to bring back. So Shigeki's like a little value engine. And then I really like Archangel of Thune. This is what I was talking about wanting to have just a little bit of a angel sub theme. Just because we're going to be gaining so much life that I think Archangel of Thune is well worth the 5 mana. And it's going to give all of our creatures +1/+1 counters, and we're going to go nice and wide. I really would like to play something like Resplendent Angel as well. At the end of each end step, if you gain 5 or more life, you get a 4/4. This is something we can build into, and we can try to gain a bunch of life on our opponent's turns as well. So, by a small angel sub-theme, I mean just a couple. Clearly, the goal of this deck is enchantments, and we're going to keep it at that. But I'd like to have a couple little value engines if I can. All right, let's go down to the instance. Let's see what we got here. I actually didn't think about Heroic Intervention. That would be really good. Give all of our permanents hexproof and indestructible, which would be good in a response to somebody's board wipe and into some other things. We see the Enlightened Tutor, we see the Path, we see the Beast Within, we see the Eladamri's Call. I like Teferi's Protection. At the end of the day, we do want to protect our board, and it's going to become really important, and Teferi's Protection does a really good job at that. We see the Generous Gift there. We see the World of Tutor. I don't think I need the Nature's Claim, or the Silence, or the Karametra's Blessing. This is getting a little bit more into our stacks pieces. I'm not as worried about that. And same thing here. I mean, the Quarter Calling doesn't seem like a bad idea to go get a really important creature, but I'm not really worried about it. I think I'm okay. I see more use of like Ingression at Dawn since we have so many ways to draw cards, but I'm okay here. I think the couple tutors that we do have are going to load them on the top of our library, and we're going to be able to draw them pretty easily. So I'm not worried about that. Let's get into the sorceries. So here's where we have to decide. Are we going to play any ways to get our enchantments back? So we want board wipes, right? At the end of the day, we need board wipes. I like Farewell, and the big reason I like Farewell is we can hit everything but our enchantments and our creatures, or we can just hit all creatures but not hit all of our enchantments. Of course, any of our enchantment creatures would get wiped out, but the rest of our enchantments wouldn't, and that's going to set our opponents back. Approach of the Second Sun is definitely another win con for this deck. You play it, you put it 7 from the top, and then if you cast it again, you win the game. So with how many cards we're drawing, if we can get up to a large amount of mana, I think that's really good. I like the idea of Brilliant Restoration, and I like the idea of Resurgent Belief. The only question becomes, Like, at what point is this mana, like, really worth it? Like, 2 mana for Resurgent Belief is really great, but we gotta wait 2 turns to do it. So that kind of stinks. But Brilliant Restoration is 7 mana, and we get everything back. So this is, I don't know, it's kind of something we gotta consider. Like I said, I like the Farewell. We'll put the Farewell in. I think this is it's a good board wipe. I think it'll do us good, and we can kind of pick and choose. I really like Open the Armory. I didn't even think about that. Open the Armory can go get any of our auras, so it can go get any of our removal auras. It can go get all that glitters or ethereal armor if we need a big attack. It can go find Shielded by Faith or Gauntlets of Light if we have either of those combos. So I think Open the Armory is really good. Enlightened Tutor does a similar thing, but that gets any enchantment. Same thing with the Idyllic Tutor, whereas Open the Armory will only get us that aura. So I really like that. And the trap of something like Open the Vaults is we would give everyone their artifact and enchantments back. So this is something I need to consider in the back of my head. I don't know where I'm at on that yet, so let's go by it for now. I like Vanquish the Horde. I think it's worth to add another board wipe. With how many cards we're drawing, hopefully we'll see at least one every game. And now we're going to get into our ramp, which is going to be really important. So we're going to play 3 visits. We're going to play Nature's Lore. We're going to play Farseek. We're going to play Rampant Growth. And then I think we'll put Kadama's Reach and Cultivate in for now. We may cut one of them later, but I think for now they're both worth playing. If we can get up higher into that mana spectrum quickly, I think it's really worth it. So, I like it. We'll add them for now. They may be the thing that I remove kind of before others. I really like something like Balaged's Recovery, but or like Regrowth, but we can get into that in a second. So we're completely going to skip these utility artifacts. Let's get down into the enchantments. Mirari's Wake. There we go. There's a big enchantment that's going to do us a lot of good. Going to double the things our mana, going to double the mana our lands tap for. Give all our creatures +1/+1. Mirari's Wake's just one of those enchantments that starts ramping the game up. It's just at the point you play Mirari's Wake, you're probably going to take a lot of heat, but you're going to be really better off. We have Seal of Cleansing and Seal of Primordium that look kind of interesting. These are enchantments that come down for 2 mana. You can sack both of them to get rid of an artifact or enchantment, which I think looks really good. That can be really good, right? We can get rid of some things at instant speed that way. We put it down on our turn and then get rid of it later. So I kind of like those for now. Aura of Silence, I'm okay. I don't think I need it. I think I prefer the seals more than Aura. It does the same thing, costs a little bit less. Now, it makes our opponents have to pay more, but I'm okay with that. Here's the big one. Oh, man, Solitary Confinement. This card is honestly one of your win cons in this deck, because this will completely shut down your opponents. At the beginning of your upkeep, sack it unless you discard a card. With how many cards we're going to be drawing, believe me, we're not going to have any problems. Skip your draw step, so we don't draw per turn. But with Sythis and how many Enchantresses we have, it's not going to be a problem. You have Shroud, so nothing can target you specifically. So no burn spells to your face, no target player sacrifices 2 creatures. But Shroud wouldn't protect us from a Cyclonic Rift, it won't protect us from a board wipe, but it would protect us from anything. And then here's the big one. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. All of it. So, no big mana spell, no infect, because remember, infect they still have to deal damage to you, so no infect loss there. You don't even have to block, because your opponents can't deal damage to you. This is the way for you to turn on. With my old Sythis deck, there were times where I would dump a Solitary Confinement and win the game in 4 or 5 turns, because no one could do anything until they got rid of the Solitary Confinement. And I had just turns to figure out what I was going to do and win the game. So I really like Solitary Confinement. I think it's exactly what we want. One of the auras that I didn't look at was Ancestral Mask, and I like that. Ancestral Mask is going to be one of those other ones where we can put it on something and just really make a card better. I really like Exploration. We're going to be drawing so many extra cards that being able to play extra lands on each of our turns is going to be really good. I clicked another card. What did I accidentally click on? Oh, Explore. We're good on Explore. But yeah, Exploration's perfect. We're going to be drawing so many cards that playing those extra lands are going to be really good. We see Overgrowth, which is another one of those mana ramp enchantments, but it's okay. Same thing with Abundant Growth. I'm okay with it. I don't need it. Grasp of Fate seems kind of interesting. For each opponent, exile up to one target non-land permanent that player controls until Grasp of Fate leaves the battlefield. I think that could be good. Allows us to take care of some pesky things. I think it's worth considering. We keep going. Wolf Willowhaven, though, is definitely one that I'd be willing to consider for ramp. Just because we can sack it eventually and get a token if we need to. But here we see two of the really big combo pieces. Flickering Ward and Whip Silk. So these are two 1-mana enchantments. So for 1, you play it down. And then for 1, you can put it back to your hand. Same thing with Whip Silk. And this is really good because if we have lots of mana with Sythis, we can put it on, get the card, get the card, gain a life, draw the card and gain a life, bring it back to our hand, play it again, and we can do those triggers. Now, we have no way to put these in at instant speed, but we do because we're going to play Sigarda's Aid. Sigarda's Aid is an enchantment that says you can cast auras as though they had flash, and whenever an enchantment enters battlefield control, you can attach it right away, which we don't care about. We care about the top part. So we can do this on our opponent's turns, and if we have enough mana, then we can turn on stuff like this on our opponent's turn as well. So I like that. That's the synergy that we're looking for. Cleric class. Cleric class is great. It's going to increase the amount of life we get. And then on the top end, we start putting more plus and plus one counters. So at level 2, this kind of does that Heliod effect, which I really like. I like Rancor. Rancor might end up being really important, but I'm going to pass on it for now. We're going to open this up. This is something we're going to come back to. Luminarch Ascension is exactly where we want. This is an enchantment that comes down, and if we can go 4 turns without losing any life on an opponent's turn, we turn this on, and then for 2 mana, we can make a 4/4 Angel. That's great. That's what we want. We want to be able to just use all of that mana to just mass produce tokens. I kind of like Privileged Position because we can still target our own enchantments, but our opponents can't. So that seems kind of cool. But I do like the look of Karmic Justice. It says, whenever a spell or ability an opponent controls destroys a non-creature permanent we control, we can destroy target permanent they control. So this allows us to kind of pay our opponents back for getting rid of our stuff. I think that seems pretty good. I like the idea of Soul Snare. This is a card that can get rid of an attacking creature, but I think I like it because it's 1 mana, which means we can play it down early, get the value off of it, and then play it later to get rid of a creature that's attacking us. We've got Rest in Peace, but I'm going to avoid Rest in Peace because I don't think I've completely ruled out not using my graveyard at all. So I don't want to play into Rest in Peace. Starfield and Nyx, I like, but I want to try to avoid my enchantments being able to be board wiped. With Starfield and Nyx, our enchantments become creatures and then they can get board wiped. We want to greatly avoid that. Greater Auramancy, I don't mind. I think it just becomes a trap. It gives enchanted creatures Shroud, which means we can't even target them. And I don't think that's good. I think we want to be able to target them. We want to be able to use our own creatures. I like Felidar Retreat, but I'm okay on it. I do like Miri's Guile, though. During our upkeep, you may look at the top 3 cards and put them back in every order. This is going to allow us to take a look at what we're going to draw for the turn. And when we start our little... when we start our, our kind of our plan for the turn, we can see what we're going to draw, which I think is really good. Druid class. Oh, we can play additional lands. I see the benefit of it. I don't know. I don't know that it's that needed, but I think that I'll put it in, at least consider it. You know, this is one of those things where we're going to have to build our list and we're going to have to take things out. And I think Druid class is at least worth considering. Calyx I like, but and the reason I like Calyx is for his -7 to bring everything back. Calyx is traditionally really only played in Enchantress decks, and I think he could be useful. His minus thing gets rid of something. His top 3, his +1 lets us look at the top 4, reveal an enchantment, put it in their hand, put the rest on the bottom. So if we, hit a Miri's Guile or a Sylvan Library and we don't like what's on top of our library, we can do this and kind of dig and get them out of the way. So I think I like Calyx. I think Calyx could do us a lot of good. We'll get into our utility lands here. So basically, at this point, now we're going to go into lands. Because we're going to completely ignore the mana artifacts, right? Because we're looking to only play... we're not playing any artifact ram. So Hollow of Heliod's Generosity is a all-star. It's a land that lets us bring an enchantment back from our graveyard to the top. So if someone gets rid of one of our great enchantments or one of our great creatures that's an enchantment, we can get it back on top. I really like Reliquary Tower because we can't play... We're choosing not to play Thought Vessel or Decanter of Endless Waters that would give us infinite hand size. Although I'm realizing we still could play them, we just can't activate it for the mana if Stony Silence is out. Okay, so maybe that's something we come back on and we decide. We've got Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. Might as well. It turns all of our lands into forests. So it would turn every single one of our lands into a forest. So these would become forests. They could tap for green, which is good. We see Beseiju, our still in my opinion a green staple. It can get rid of a lot of pesky things. And then we see a card called Saga Sanctum. I'm only putting this in here because I actually own one for my original Sythis deck, and then I put it in Shrines. Add a white for each enchantment you control. At the end of a really long turn, this is going to tap for a lot. I love Nykthos in this deck. We're going to be playing a lot of permanents, which is going to allow us to hopefully tap this since our devotion should be pretty high. So I like Nykthos. Rogue's Passage, Gavany Township, Guy's Cradle. We see Ancient Tomb, Stirring Wildwood, Dryad Arbor, St. Includes Depth. See, I like Urza's Saga, but the thing is, what am I playing that I can go get with Urza's Saga? I'm not going to be playing Soul Ring because I'm going to try for the Stony Silence. So what could we go get with Urza's Saga that would make it worth it? Nothing that I can think of, right? Because even Thought Vessel's 2 mana, and I doubt I'm going to play any artifact lands. We don't want to go get Walking Ballista because it would come in as a 0/0. So yeah, I can't think of anything that we would want with Urza's Saga, so I don't even think we play the Urza's Saga. Okay, and we'll come into our dual lands. So we want Command Tower. I think we want Reflecting Pool because it's a dual land at this point. I think City of Brass is worth it. We're going to be gaining enough life. I don't think we mind the loss of life. We could play Path of Ancestry, but we don't really have any way to pay it off. I don't mind Fabled Passage. We're going to probably have enough basic lands for that to be worth it. So then let's think about dual lands. We got Temple Garden. That's our shock land. We've got Windswept Heath. That's our dual. That's our words today. That's our fetch land. All right, let's go here. Canopy Vista, Sun Petal Grove. I like both of those. Canopy Vista is going to come in untapped if we control 2 or more basics, which is honestly probably going to be the case most of the time. And then Sun Petal Grove, same thing, is going to come in untapped if we control either a forest or a plains, which is going to happen a lot of the times. Overgrown Farmland. This is our Innistrad land. Comes in tapped unless we control Overgrown permanent. Comes untapped unless we control 2 or more of the lands. So later in the game, it's always going to come in untapped, which is great. We saw our pathway, which can come down as either a green or a white source. So that's good. I think that's going to work well. We see Bountiful Promenade. This is going to come in untapped if we control 2 or more opponents, which is good. So if we see it in the early game. Here's what we have to decide. Temple of Plenty and Fortified Village have a chance to come in tapped. Do we still want to play them? I like Temple of Plenty just because it can give us the scry. So if we're going on these turns where we're drawing a lot of cards. Fortified Village. You can reveal a forest or plains from your hand. If not, it comes in tapped. I still think it's worth it. I think a lot of the times we're going to have, with how many cards we have in our hand, we're going to have these extra lands to show for it. Wooded Bastion and Sungrass Prairie. These are going to help us filter our mana. So I like it. What we got to do here is watch our land count. Make sure that we don't play too many of these, and then we can't play basic lands. Brushland. So the question on Brushland, is this one of those ones that we're about to get reprinted in Dominoia? I don't think so. Otherwise, yeah, it would be a pretty good card. Southern Sanctuary, no. Converge is okay. I like Horizon Canopy, though. Gives us the option to draw a card if we need it. And again, we don't mind the life to get the mana because we're going to be gaining life. Exotic Orchard, I'm okay. I'm okay with the Blossoming Sands. Shadow Groves, I think we're okay. We'll have plenty of other ways to get lands. Arctic Tree Line, we might as well. Gives us another search target. I don't want to go into the case where we go to Windswept Heath and we've already drawn the Temple Garden. This will just give us another dual land to go find. I kind of like the idea of Razor Verge Thicket, but I think we want to go for more basics here. Yeah, I think we want to fill out the rest with basics. I actually don't hate the Converge because it can go get us lands, but I think at this point we just go straight into the... We'll just do... Let's see, what are we looking at? We're looking at pretty half and half. So let's do 6 plains. We'll do 5 forest. So we'll go to 34 lands, which I think is great. In fact, we can probably even cut a land with how many draw sources we have. Okay, we'll hold Rancor for a second. Okay, so we got 119. Let's check out this Saga Search, and then what we'll do is we'll start cutting cards. We'll start going through and trimming our deck down and start making the big decisions on what to take out and what to keep. Okay, so let's look at our sagas. What I want to do is I want to look at them by EDH rank, and then we'll go by release date, because I like doing both. Sometimes you miss them. So Urza Saga, like I said, we don't have anything to search. ECD I don't mind, but it seems a little too expensive. Song of Freyalise brings up a good point. I think this is a Cryptolith Right deck. Cryptolith Right is an enchantment that says creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. I think this is really good for our deck, because then all those tokens can tap for mana and make ourselves go bigger. I think we're good on the Meliodas. I like the Aganjo, but I think we have better things. Michiko's is a slam dunk, because when it turns over to the backside, we get lots of mana. I like Jugan. Jugan could be good. On the backside, it allows us to pay mana when creatures come in and give them plus and counters, and then if we have more than 5 creatures with counters, if we have 5 creatures with counters on them, Jugan gets +5/+5 and trample, so it becomes giant. So I like Jugan. It also gives us that 1/1 that taps for mana. Battle for Bredigard I like. I just think it's going to be too hard to set up. It's not gonna do well enough. Man, I kind of like Boseiju Reach's Skyward just because it gets us the land and it flips over into a big creature, but I think it's a trap. Rowan Games is okay. I don't think it's good enough. Same thing with the Zeus's. I love History Benalia, but unfortunately this isn't the deck for it. Don't mind this, but again, I think it's a little too much. Falaconda, no. Don't mind Triumph of Gerard, but I just worry we can't pay it off enough. Air of Enlightenment. Okay. And then we won't look at this. We won't look at the World Spell, even though although I really like the World Spell. We're not going to look at anything Dominoia yet. So you'll see by the date on this computer that we have started to see spoilers, but I don't want to use any cards from Dominaria United yet, although I have seen some of them. That's a video down the line. We'll deal with Dominaria. So, okay. There's our sagas. The last thing I'm going to do, which you're not going to be able to see on screen, is I'm going to open up my staple binder. Since this is a deck that I'm brewing for myself, I have a staple binder. You can go check out my staple binder video on the channel. You can see what's in my staple binder. But this is a set of cards that I look at when I brew decks that I use in all of my decks, or that I want to use in all of my decks. First thing I see is Anointed Procession, which I feel like if we're going to go for the tokens would be really good. It's going to double up on the amount of tokens we create. I think that would be really good. The next card that I see that I really like, since we're going to go for the tokens, is Intangible Virtue. It's going to give all of our creature tokens +1/+1 in Vigilance. Oh, that's a card I like because it's going to pay off for our big turns, and that's Monastery Mentor. It's a creature that makes tokens whenever we cast non-creature spells. That seems really good. And then here's a great card for our token strategy when we start attacking. Reconnaissance gives all our creatures Vigilance. That's all I see for white. So let's go to green. See if there's anything in green in here that... I like the idea of Bear Umbra, because it could untap all of our lands, but it seems a little expensive. I like the idea of Beastmaster Ascension, but again, I think we want to try to keep our enchantments as cheap as possible and make sure that we're just pumping out our good enchantments. I like the idea of Garruk's Uprising, only because these angels we create with Sigil of the Empty Throne are 4/4s. Same thing with Resplendent Angel. So that would draw us a card, and it'll also give all of our creatures trample. So I really like that. It's not bad to have another trample enabler. Didn't even think about that. We have Growing Rights of Itlamok. Flips over into a Gaia's Cradle. That could be really good. Gives us access to a lot of green mana, which will be good for when we take our big turn, or bigger turns. And that's it I see there. Let's go to green-white. I don't hate the idea of Aura Shards, but I think I'm going to have more enchantments than I want to play. We're going to avoid the... Yep, and then we're going to avoid the artifacts, like I said. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's good. Now I have I had the odd thought in the back of my mind is like, do we throw bootlegger stash in here on the top end? But I don't think we do. Okay. So we got 34 lands, which is good. We're at 127. So just like Mikey and I did on our head-to-head Brews episodes, we're going to start cutting down cards. Now, in the last brew episode I did for Zexara, I was building a little bit more and paying attention more to the numbers, whereas here I was just adding a bunch of cards because I think I want to play around more with the ratios. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up top, and we're going to try to just remove a couple from each section, and then once we get down to 100, we'll go through the cards we removed and see if anything's important enough to go back in. So creatures, what's important to come out? I like Weaver of Harmony. I like these three. I think they're good. I like Shigeki. Tessin Champion's good. Nylea gives our creatures trample, so maybe it's something that we can cut. I like the Monastery Mentor because it's going to give us the tokens. Are we playing too many Enchantress effects? I don't think so. Maybe we cut Catilda. Maybe it's not going to do us enough. think I'm going to cut Herald of the Pantheon. I like both the Heliads. I do like the Vigilance. Eidolon Blossoms, Dryad, Destiny Spinner, maybe the Courser Crucifix. And then maybe a Johnny's Chosen. So again, here, we're trying to cut. The way that I like to approach the cuts is look by each section and try to prioritize what cards are more important than others. A Johnny's Chosen, yes, I'm cutting a source that can make me tokens, but I'm trying to keep the other sources that are going to end up doing more for me in the long run. In fact, Light Paws might even be it, but I'm going to keep Light Paws for now. I like this batch of creatures. I think this does me a lot of good. So we're going to move down to sorceries. I think we cut one of the two of these. We have Vanquished the Hordes. We have Opened the Armory. Do we cut a board wipe? I don't think so. I don't want to go so one-sided into enchantments that we don't have any way to deal with the board. But I also kind of think that we need to stay focused on our game plan. So we're going to cut the Farewell. I think we're going to keep Approach of the Second Sun because that's going to be one of our win cons. We'll go down here to the enchantment, or the instance. I'm going to cut the Generous Gift. I think I like Beast Within just a little bit more. I like these guys for removal. I like Heroic Intervention. I like the Tutor. I like Eldamri's Call as a Tutor. And is it the Teferi's Protection? Teferi's Protection just seems really good. So we'll leave that in there for now. 46 enchantments is probably too many at the end of the day. So we'll have to cut a few here. And then I think I really like the lands numbers. So let's go through these. What is something that we can cut? Let's cut the Druid class. Let's cut the Intangible Virtue for now. Let's cut the Jugan for now. Again, I say for now because I am prioritizing other enchantments over them. Let's cut the Karmic Justice for now. Kenrith, Lignify. I'm going to cut Lignify for now because we have Darksteel, we have Kenriths, we have Song of the Dryads. We have plenty of those. Luminarch I like, Michiko's I really like. This I like, Miri's Guy I like Reconnaissance, I like the Seals. But maybe we cut them for now. Maybe they become a little less important. Shielded by Faith I like, Sigarda's 8 I like. Sigil I like, Confinement I like, the Dryads. Soul Snare maybe gets cut for now. Maybe we cut the Wolf of Lowhaven. Maybe we have too many of these. We're down to 110. Okay. Maybe we cut something like Grasp of Fate. Grasp of Fate does hit a lot of really good things. So we're down to 110. We've already cut 17 cards. So we're going to just go back through again. So what we're doing here is we're going through and trying to make these tough decisions on what's worth cutting. And trying to make our best decisions. So what I'm thinking is, do we replace something like a Resplendent Angel with a Crested Sunmare? Because we have a lot of ways to gain life on our opponent's turn. Maybe we cut the Resplendent Angel for the Crested Mare, which is going to still give us tokens, but it's going to make all our horses indestructible. But we're going to be able to gain a life on every turn, especially with things like Authority of the Consuls and Ashes of the Abhorrent. So I think that makes sense. Something tells me we might actually have too many Enchantresses. Let it cut Mesa Enchantress and keep Satyr Enchantress. Honestly, only because Satyr Enchantress is actually a little bit less expensive in real life. So maybe that'll help. Okay, so that gets us down to 109. Here, I can't justify cutting the Idyllic Tutor because it could come in really good handy. And I don't want to cut the ramp. We need the ramp. We come back down here. Again, I don't want to cut the Tutor. Do we cut the Eldamri's Call? Do we cut the Beast Within? I really like the removal. We need a little bit of removal. We can't just... I guess we do have some of this removal. So maybe we can cut like a Sword to Plowshares and keep a path, which I'd rather give my opponent a land than life. Okay, so we're down to 108. This is where the cuts get really tough, is because I see a lot of these enchantments and a lot of them are really good. I think I'm going to go down a land, which I don't normally recommend, but I think in this deck we have so many ways to draw cards and we have so much ramp. I don't think we're going to have issues. What enchantments do we cut? Do we go down the Song of Dryads? Because we got Kenris, we got Darksteel. With Sigarda's Aid, we could play those all at instant speed, so I really like Sigarda's Aid. Do we cut the Anointed Procession? Are we making enough tokens to make the Anointed Procession worth it? I think so. I think we are. Is it the Garruk's Uprising? Or do we play Garruk's Uprising? We cut the Nylea. Never mind. I was going to say, do we play it over the Nylea? I think we do. Is it Growing Rights? It is great on the backside, though. It gives us more mana. Hollow Haunting I really like. Man, this is tough. This is really tough. This is starting to get tough on what to cut. Because we're down to 107, so we have to cut something. It's not like we can leave, you know, we can't just leave the list where it is. I like the Wild Growth, Utopia Sprawl, and Fertile Ground. I like having all three of them because it gives us good ramp at the start. What if I go down the Song of Dryads? What if we go down the Ancestral Mask for now? Even though it's going to give us, it would make one of our creatures really big. Maybe we go down on it for now. Because we have all that glitters and Ethereal Armor that both do very similar things. It's just that Ancestral Mask gives us +1 for every enchantment in play, not just ours. Whereas these two are only giving it for ours. I like the Flickering Warden. I like the Whip Silk just because they help us with getting lots of spells off. You know, lots of our non-creature spells off if we need them. I'm having a really tough time. So let's go back up to creatures. I want to keep Archangel of Thune because we have so many ways to gain life, right? Makes a lot of sense to want to put counters on our creatures. Do I cut like Moonblast Cleric? We have plenty of tutors. Down to 104. I really want to keep Light Paws, and I really want to keep both the Heliads because I think they're both really good. I guess with the Heliads, we could cut Reconnaissance or consider it later because this gives Vigilance. And I guess if we're going to go the infinite mana tokens route, we probably don't need Vigilance at the end of the day. I like Monastery Mentor a lot. It has prowess on those big turns. It's going to pump all of these monks. I like Light Paws because we have a lot of auras. We have some auras that we can play into it, but I guess maybe do we have enough? The only thing I like about Light Paws is if we play a Kenris transformation, we can go get in all that glitters. If we play a Wild Growth, we can go get an Ethereal Armor. If we play a Fertile Ground, we can go get in all that glitters. I guess that's the other tough. If we play a Gauntlet of Light, we can go get one of these other ones. If we play the Shielded by Faith, we can go get one of these other ones. That's why I kind of don't want to cut Light Paws. I think it enables a lot of great strategies. Do I go down on Satyr Enchanter? Do I go down on another Enchantress? Am I going to have enough with just Sythis? I guess this becomes the hard part. And this is my least favorite part of deck building, is when you're down to 104, 105, 103, and you're just desperately trying to figure out, what the heck do I cut? What the heck do I cut? And so, I'm not sure. Eidolon Blossom draws, Setessan Champion draws. Is it the Satyr Enchanter? Let's cut it for now, because like I said, we can come back at the end and see if we want to put anything back in. I cut the Kadamas Reach? Do I go crazy and only rely on the couple pieces of ramp we have? One card. We gotta cut one card. I really like Calyx. I really want to use Calyx. I think it's a great card, and I think it does us a lot of good, but it's almost arguably the weakest link here. Like, every other card in this deck just seems better. So I think it's Calyx. So that gets us down to 100. So let's go down to the considering board here, where we have a bunch of cards. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at these cards and think, do any of these for sure need to go back in? Can we not live without any of them? I think, pardon me, the point I'm more worried about is these enchantments. Are these any of these enchantments that we really, really want? I really like Soul Snare. I think I like Intangible Virtue only because it gives that buff to our tokens. I like Jugan because on the backside it gives us another thing. I like Karmic Justice because it kind of stops our opponents. An argument could be made for the Druid class because it nets us life every time we play a land. So we added the Intangible Virtue back, but the question is, what do we cut for it? I think the reason I want to play this is because I want to play the Anointed Procession, right? We want to have some sort of benefit for playing these tokens cards, especially with something like Hallowed Haunting and Sigil of the Empty Throne and Luminarch Ascension that all make these tokens, right? 1, 2, 3. All three of these make tokens. So we have payoffs to the Anointed Procession. We have the Arcana Sun's Grace. We have the Crested Summare. We have the Monastery Mentor. We have the Shielded by Faith Siona. We have all these things to make tokens. So I don't want to cut those because those seem really important. I don't want to cut like the Garruk's Uprising, for example, because it at minimum gives us trample. If we put one of these enchantments on Sythis or on Lightpaws and get them to be this giant creature, we can give them trample and make them hit through. So I don't want to do that. And the other reason I like Garruk's Uprising is Sigil and Luminarch Ascension and Crested Sunmare all make tokens big enough for Garruk's Uprising to draw us a card. So I don't want to eliminate the bonus that we get there. So it's hard for me to talk myself out of those because I think those are the most important. And then stuff like Michiko's All That Glitters and Ethereal Armor, I don't want to cut because those are payoffs for the amount of stuff we're going to have. I don't want to cut Cryptolith, right? Because, you know, it allows our tokens to tap, or even our enchantresses to tap for mana, which is something that I cannot discount. I don't want to cut Ashes of the Abhorrent, Authority of the Consuls, Blind Obedience, because those hurt our opponents. I don't want to cut Stolen Silence because that hurts our opponent. You know, Sterling Grove is another tutor. That's going to go get us another enchantment, which is why I was kind of content to cut Moonblessed Cleric, because I didn't think I needed it. I didn't think I needed a fourth tutor. Is it Cleric? I don't think it's Cleric. I mean, Cleric class is one that I'm thinking of only because... But the only thing I like about Cleric class is if I get it down and set it up, then I can use it with... I can actually use it as a second combo piece with Walking Ballista. So that's why I don't want to cut Cleric classes, because it kind of acts as another piece of that combo. So I don't want to cut that. I like the Growing Rites of Itlamok. I feel like it does really well. I like the Miri's Guile and the Sylvan Library and just setting up our turns really well. I almost want to say is the answer to Teferi's Protection. But it doesn't feel like it. It feels like Teferi's Protection is really good. Man, my gut almost says Idyllic Tutor. Get rid of one of our enchantment tutors, because we have so many other great tutors and we're going to be drawing so much. Maybe that's our choice. Brings us back down to 100. Man, I'd love to work Resplendent Angel back in, but the problem is I have no way to pay off gaining life on my opponent's turns to that degree. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way for me to guarantee that I can gain 4 life on opponent's turn, but there's definitely a way that I can gain a life because of things like Authority of the Consuls and Ashes of Beorn. There's definitely ways that I can make sure I gain a life. And you know, but I can't guarantee that I can gain, what is it, 4 life needed for Resplendent Angel? 5 life. I can't guarantee the 5 life. Okay, so the last piece that I like to do when I brew, so we're down to 100. We got our main board set, and that's great. We've got our main board set down. This is going to give us a list to you know, proxy out or build out with our friends and test. But 27 cards is way too many to have in our sideboard. So what I really would like to do is cut this sideboard down to about 7 cards that we can make the things that we want to consider putting back in. I like a Johnny's Chosen because it makes tokens. I think I'm willing to cut that. I'm willing to cut that. I kind of want to keep Catilda. I'm willing to cut this. We'll cut the Cleric. We'll cut Nylea. We'll cut Satyr Enchanter. I want to keep these two because this one makes tokens and this one's just good. It works with Hallowed Haunting. It works with the number of enchants we have. It could be a really big creature. I like Calyx. I'm willing to keep it. Cultivate we'll take out. Kadama's Reach we'll take out. We'll keep Idyllic Tutor and Farewell. Generous Gift. We'll cut the Plowshares. I like Ancestral Mask. I just think it could be good. I like Jugan, but I also like Karmic Justice. We'll cut the Lignify. We'll cut the Reconnaissance. We'll keep the Seals. We'll cut Song of the Dryads. We'll cut the Soul Snare. We'll cut the Wolf Willow Haven. And now I think we'll cut the Seals. So this brings us down to 8 cards in our sideboard. It gives us another board wipe. It gives us another token producer. It gives us another great good creature for 3 mana. It keeps us the Idyllic Tutor in case we need to put it back in. Ancestral Mask is there. Ancestral Mask is a great card. I think Ancestral Mask can be really good because it's going to give a buff to a creature, and I'm honestly not convinced that Ancestral Mask doesn't need to go back in. Like, it kind of feels like the first card that needs to be put back in because I feel like it pays off everything that we're trying to do. The only downside to it is it doesn't give trample, which is what the goal of a card like Garruk's Uprising is, which then makes me want to put that Nylea God of the Hunt back in because that gives trample. So you could see the kind of like the I'm going to put Nylea back in the sideboard just because I think it's something that as I test this deck, maybe something to consider seeing if that trample is needed. And since she's an enchantment, we can go find it. The best part here, right, is every single important piece of our deck is an enchantment other than Walking Ballista and some of our token producers. So we have a high likelihood chance to go get most of our deck that we need with our tutors, our creature tutors, or our enchantment tutors. So I think it's too important to keep those in place. And you know, I feel bad cutting the Idyllic Tutor because, again, it could enable our strategies. It's another piece that could eventually find us our combo. But what do we give up out of the toolbox to get that in there? That's what I'm not sure. And so I think at this point, this is where we need to stop and test because I've covered almost everything of all the responses I can think of, all the play lines I can think of, all the bonuses I can think of. But the problem is I still don't know where to bring in these cards that can continue to enable our strategy, what to bring them in for. I'm not sure. And so what I would say is this is where knowing what you're like, if you play in a closed play group that plays a lot of creatures that maybe you bring back in the second board wipe. But if you play against a lot of combo decks, then maybe you bring the Idyllic Tutor and this Karmic Justice back in, and you punish people from taking your pieces away. I don't know. And that's the hard part for me, is I'm just not sure. Maybe I'm serving too many masters. Maybe I'm putting in too many sub-strategies, and I need to be content with playing less into, I don't know, tokens and more into the Enchantress. I don't know, but to me, I feel like the deck needs a way to stay. If you can't combo off quickly and you're taking a little bit to ramp up, I feel like we need things like the tokens to kind of keep us around and keep us hard to attack. So that's why I kind of like the token strategy. And then we have a couple of different ways to win. I mean, it's a shame we can't play in Impact Tremors or anything like that to damage our opponent that way. Now, the argument could be made that I could still play an Aetherflux Reservoir, because how often are we going to see Stony Silence and Aetherflux Reservoir at the same time? And the answer to that is it's probably right. I think that's probably fair. We could see an Aetherflux Reservoir be a good option, only because we're going to probably be gaining so much life that an Aetherflux Reservoir could be worth it. So I think I'll throw it in the considering board as something that we look and see. Do we do it? The other good thing about Aetherflux Reservoirs is, even if we cannot activate it because of the Stony Silence, we can certainly still gain life, which means it would still be relevant. I'm not really sure how else to pay off the life. I can't really find a good way to pay off the life gain that I can think of other than these things that make tokens. And so I think I have to just stay content with where the list is at as far as the life gain goes, and paying off the +1/+1 counters with Heliod and Archangel of Thune and things like that. So I think I really like where the deck is at. I think it feels good. It feels like what I wanted to do with Sythis in the first place. And I think I just needed the time to come back and take a look at it again and see what the list needed. So the next step for me here, this won't happen with every deck in this series. Of course, there's going to be decks that I brew that this will be the end. I leave it at 100 cards. I leave it with the sideboard. Maybe every few sets I'll come back and switch some cards around. But this is a deck that I definitely want to test again. This is a deck that I want to play again, and I want to enjoy again. And so this will be a deck that I'll be proxying back out and maybe even building again in the future. But that is it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. The one thing that I forgot to do in the Zaxara play test, or the thing that I'd like to do, is just do a quick play test. Yes, this is a computer shuffler, which means we're only guaranteed so many things. But let's just play 3 turns out. Let's see what we can do with a completely random hand. Turn 1, I like the Temple Garden in tapped. Just gives us access to both of our pieces of mana. We draw, and I think we turn to Sythis. Our goal is to get Sythis out as quickly as possible, and so that's what we want to do. Turn 3, we play this Forest. I think we Farseek for a Plains, and then we play Sylvan Library, and that would net us another card, and then we would go into turn 4 with 4 mana, be able to play something like play this Reliquary Tower down and play Eidolon of Blossoms, and then be able to draw every card we need and keep going. So that just goes to show you really quickly what our one hand's worth of focus of what we're kind of trying to do. And we'll do one more. Really heavy land here, but we got the exploration, so I like it. We'll draw for turn. Let's dump the plenty in. And let's see, what do we draw? Cetesian Champion, we'll leave it on top. We'll go to turn 2, draw. We're going to play a Plains in, and then dump Sythis in. Turn 3, we're going to draw. Get this Plains down. We're going to get the exploration down. That's going to draw us a card. Now we can play an extra land. We're going to play the Canopy Vista now that we have 2 basic lands. So we played our 2 lands for turn. We dumped the Authority of the Consuls, which draws a card. We got 2 mana left. And then I think we save up the Heroic Intervention just in case anyone tries to mess with us on board. We'll go one more turn. I think we dump the Sarah Sanctum here. Get Enchantress's presence down. That draws us a card. I would probably tap these 3 for that. So we got 1 in this left. So we got 4 mana. Get the Cetessan Champion down. Maybe we do the Cetessan Champion before the Enchantress's presence. That might get us some more on board. And then, try to see if we can leave up Heroic Intervention. So again, we got to build this enchantment value quickly, but still protect our board. And so, yeah, I think I like it. I think I like the way the list looks. Again, 2 hands is not enough testing, but I think I like the way that the curve looks so far. So this is the point where I would go try it with my play group, see how it looks. If you guys like the list will be in the description. As the deck changes over time, that link in the description should also show that as well. So if anything gets added in Dominoia, I'm going to do that for these lists that I've been doing the brews for. We'll be doing that in its own video, seeing if Dominoia adds anything to the lists. And same thing for my main decks. I'll be doing a video about if anything from Dominoia gets put into any of my main decks. So if that's the kind of content you're looking for, you'll see that as soon as the set comes out. Other than that, I will catch you guys next time.